floods, tornadoes. In 2016, talking about the weather was often more than just polite conversation. Sometimes it even became a matter of life or death.
I saw this whirlwind. It was so traumatizing. The sheets of the people's roofs came off and it looked like papers in the air.
And the man is some chick. Nami namanzi law angtati.
All the while, the country was in the grip of a drought, the worst in decades. 2016 is set to become the hottest year on record. What's scary is 2015 was the hottest, and before that, 2014 held the record. This trend means it's likely we have already done too much damage to turn back the clock.
In the coming decades, we will see this negative trend to continue anyhow, which means that we will see more often disasters related to weather.
This year was the first time South Africans got a real look into what climate change means beyond scientists' graphs and figures.
Still a warning for heavy snow possible over the northeastern JOHANNESBURG.
Approximately 200 households are affected by the floods.
When I close my eyes at night, all I can see is running water and mud, and it's very difficult to get any sort of sleep.
January has been the 9th consecutive month after each other that has broken the record for the hottest month.
I think we can say with a degree of certainty that part of these extreme events is certainly climate change. So one of the very clear predictions of climate change is that the events that normally occur, those events will become more extreme and they will be more frequent. So instead of using the future tense of will be, I think we would be entitled to use the present tense and say they are more extreme even this year.
In my lifetime, I'm only aware of 2 tornadoes that have ever happened in this area, and they're both in the recent past. So we're moving to a situation where the climate is so angry that we're going to start seeing things like tornadoes, which you normally don't get in South Africa.
Our droughts, normal in an arid region, are becoming more and more intense.
What most people do not realize is just how close we've come to catastrophic failure. We've literally dodged the bullet. Gauteng was down to about a week's supply of water at one point in time, and then the Gauteng economy shuts down. You're talking 60% of the national economy.
I'm here on the dam wall of the Vaal Dam. Now this dam supplies water to the majority of people in Gauteng. Recent rains mean water levels here have risen slightly, but it's still less than half what it should be at this time of year. In 2016, water issues burst onto the public consciousness in South Africa. 8 provinces were declared drought disaster zones. But we're not alone. It's estimated that across Africa, this drought may have left as many as 36 million people without food.
And with that humanitarian disaster, economic fallout.
I think the economic effect of the weather patterns has been underestimated. If you look at the direct effects, the most immediate evidence of it is provided by agricultural output, which has roughly halved over the last 18 months.
The drought gives important insight into how able or impotent we are when dealing with the effects of weather.
A drought is about more than just what falls from the sky. It's also about how we respond to the lack of rain.
And mismanaging this precious resource has only added to the problem.
One could always say that we should have started earlier. But on the other hand, you know, rear view vision is 2020 vision. But we've learned also. I think we've learned that we need to be prepared for these kind of disasters.
It's amazing how a natural weather event like a drought can make humankind reflect on its collective behavior. But has the threat of fines, water tariff increases, as well as water cuts changed behavior? 2016 saw South Africans face harsh penalties for wasting water. Officials say people were initially reluctant to stop watering gardens and topping up pools, but increasingly forceful measures have seen a change in mindset.
The drought has been with us for a few years now. It is not going to go away just like that, and therefore we need to continue to be conscious of the fact that water savings has got to be a way of life and has got to come into our psyche and into our DNA.
Climate change is challenging all of us to think differently, no matter who we are, no matter where we live.
How terrifying was it? We can see the result of the storm. It speaks to the power and magnitude of it. But how terrified were you for your life at that particular moment?
Man, we want to thank God that we're still alive. Actually, I was thinking that it was my last day on earth because the storm was so powerful, it was so strong. Even the cars were the evidence that this thing, it was too powerful.
Politicians started changing their approach towards climate change a few years back.
But the debate is settled. Climate change is a fact.
Climate change is a matter of life and death.
The devastating impacts of climate change are with us here.
In recent years, global leaders have agreed that urgent action is needed to slow down climate change. This means using greener sources of fuel, reducing factory emissions, moving away from coal-fired power, and developing new technology to put electric cars on the road. In 2015, almost 200 countries signed the world's first deal to limit global emissions. South Africa, the continent's biggest contributor to global warming, as well as China and the USA, the world's top 2 polluters, were all on board. But come November, a political change that could reverse any and all progress.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton.
Donald Trump's election as the new leader of the free world could have disastrous implications for the global emissions deal. He's a known climate change skeptic.
Les États-Unis, première puissance économique du monde, deuxième émetteur de gaz à effet de serre, doivent respecter les engagements qui ont été pris.
2017 will reveal whether Trump's stance on climate change was just electioneering or the beginning of a backtrack on the USA's commitments. While politicians wrangle, 2017 will continue to get hotter.
Well, from a global perspective, I think we can expect a very slight and marginal warming across the globe in general. But from a local perspective, seasonal models are showing that we'll see a very normal summer. So normal temperatures across South Africa with normal rainfall amounts. So not quite the dry weather that we saw in the last season with the El Nino.
But out of sight shouldn't mean out of mind, even if our weather eases in 2017.
In South Africa, we are quite a vulnerable country, especially to things like droughts and flooding. Those are our major weather events. And with climate change, what we'll see is a high incidence of those events. And when they do occur, they'll be more intense. So the droughts will be more often and more intense, and the flooding will also be more often and more intense. And then we'll also see severe thunderstorms that could develop. And of course, that's also why we're starting to see the tornadoes.
Our future conversations about weather need to include ways to save water and reduce our carbon footprint. A global challenge, but also a deeply personal one. Teresa Taylor, Johannesburg.